Hi there, and welcome to the Resilient Lawyer podcast, hosted by Professional Mind Resilience Institute. I am Mareike, and with me I also have advocate Sonia Sillier. Hi, Sonia.
Hello.
Good. So today we have a great guest with us, and also a very important topic. And we have Danielle Hugo with us today. She is an advocate of the Pretoria Society of Advocates. She specializes in administrative, environmental, water, mineral, and petroleum law. Welcome, Danielle. It's great to have you with us today. Before we get into the topic, which I will share in a moment, please tell everybody that's listening and watching, how did you get into this field of study, especially, the specific fields that you are specializing
Thank you, Marika and Sonia. It's great to be here. I think Sonia will also probably be able to verify, but a lot of people at the bar say that your specialty sort of finds you instead of the other way around. And I think that's exactly how it happened for me. When I started practice, I sort of got into a general practice, and as it sometimes happens, the family law seems to follow the female colleagues around a little bit more. I quite early into my practice realized that that wasn't for me. I didn't like that law. It was, yes, for various reasons. And then one of my senior colleagues actually referred an environmental law matter to me and said, well, she thinks that there's not a lot of, or many juniors that specialize in that field. And if I want to sort of fill that gap, I should go for it. And then I just did an additional course at Tux, and that's sort of how it happened. Subsequently, did my master's degree in environmental law, and I'm currently in my second year of my doctorate in the same field.
in. Sure. Fascinating. So the topic for today is motherhood and the bar. So why did you decide on this specific topic? Why is this important to you?
I um, well, let me just maybe for the viewers and everybody, let's just take a step back. And Sonia and I actually go back a very long time. I was her pupil 12 years ago, and I told her we've actually come full circle because when I was her pupil, she was in exactly the same position or similar position as I am now. I am married, and I we have three kids, twin girls who are now 4 years old, and a little boy who's 20 months old. So it's a full house, a busy house, and um, I saw the struggles that Sonia was experiencing all those years ago. And now I can look back, and now's the first time that I actually fully understand what it was dealing with a household, having a husband, young kids, and a practice. And it's difficult. It's just plainly it's difficult. It's difficult to manage keeping everything, all the balls in the air, and more often than not, your practice takes a back seat, um, willingly or unwillingly. That's just how it happens.
Hmm. And Sonia, so you said, Danielle, you said Sonia went through the same experience. Sonia, if you can tell us just quickly what Danielle is referring to in terms of what you experienced a couple of years ago.
Yes, well, I had my children back to back. So I had my son in 2010. I had my daughter, which was a bit of a surprise package, in 2011, and my stepdaughters moved in with me in 2012. So I went in a period of 2 years, I went from having just being a professional woman and advocate to having four children, two babies and two teenagers. And Danielle was my pupil at the time, so she saw my battles throughout that. And I think probably one of the most difficult things, Danielle, and I would like to hear your view on that as well, is going from that professional image of yourself. You know, I remember once I had to go and consult with a Joburg advocate. We had a roundtable meeting, and I was feeling so tired and I was feeling so overwhelmed, and I was all dressed up. And we went into this very adversarial round table. And, you know,
as we women often have to do, you have to, even come across stronger to establish yourself. And when I left and I got into my car, I realized I had peanut butter everywhere on my back. So it was from the children in the morning where they put their hands on the back of my seat. So the whole of my car seat was covered in peanut butter and my jacket. And that's the realities of motherhood. You go in there and you have this professional persona, but then you're a mom with peanut butter, So I'd like to hear how you're experiencing it now, Danielle.
Yes, it's exactly that. Yes, I think a strange thing is with motherhood, and I think people might tell you that beforehand, but you'll never know until you've experienced it, is you have to get to know yourself as a mother, and you've known yourself as a professional person to some extent, and now all of a sudden you're in this position with this little baby, or two babies in my case, and you don't know them, which is also a strange thing. I mean, they are your children, but you also have to get to know them, but also get to know yourself as a mother. And that mind shift in trying to, yes, find your space. I found that it was actually easier for me to get to know myself as an advocate or as a professional person as it was to get to know myself as a mother. So yes, I also experience that, and to some extent, and I think that's also part of the discussion today, is now that you're a mother, not you. Sometimes I think we overcompensate because you don't want to come across as weak, which I don't know why we do that, because I think being a mother actually makes us so much stronger. But sometimes, having small kids, you have the idea that people will perceive you as maybe not as aggressive as they want you to be, or as focused on the cases they want you to be, because you've got these small kids that you also have to take care of and think of. And I mean that it's true, but it doesn't mean that we're not able to do our job. I think it makes us better at the job. But like I said, it remains a difficult balance.
Yes, I agree with you completely. I remember especially with having small kids, it's almost like you feel vulnerable to admit that you've got small kids.
Yes.
So I remember when an attorney would phone me and I've got my children in the car, I wouldn't answer the phone because I'd be uncomfortable that they hear that my children are with me, even if it's 6 o'clock at night. And you'd rather say you're going for a consultation than saying you are going to a doctor's meeting with your baby, because you don't want to sort of admit to the fact that you're also a mother. And that is actually quite a strange environment to be in, because you're expected to be both these roles, but you can't really admit to the one. I don't know if you've experienced that.
No, absolutely. And as recent as I was dealing with an urgent application over the weekend, and we were in court yesterday, and we'll get to what happened there. But the senior counsel that I was working with phoned me Sunday evening, I think at 6:30. Okay, so it's just before bath time. It's been a weekend, and I don't think he meant it in a bad way in any way whatsoever. But the first question was, "Are you able to talk?" Because the kids are running in the background and they're shouting and screaming. And my immediate reaction was to leave the house to go to a quiet place. And yes, of course I can talk, because I'm just so scared that he, not that I would lose the brief at that point, but maybe not want to use me as a junior anymore because I'm not available at 6:30, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But that fear, and because we are in the profession that, I mean, it's highly competitive, you need to maintain your reputation, you need to make a name for yourself, and that constant availability. I mean, so yes, I said, of course, yes, we can talk quickly, but the kids are, about to have a bath. And I mean, he was absolutely fine with it, but I was the one that was so scared of, please just don't think that I'm unavailable 6:30 on a Sunday evening, which is completely, like I said, ridiculous. Not from his side, from my side.
Mm.
So yes, it's an odd thing, and we need to stop doing that. I don't know how. I don't know how we're going to stop, or how we can stop. but we need to stop being afraid of being a mother in this profession. I don't know how it's whether it's going to actually require a shift in thought, which I think is probably happening slowly but surely. But the starting point is probably for us to stop, feeling guilty for having small kids while being in this profession.
Yes, I think my personal view is that the legal fraternity, we very much modeled a lawyer on a stereotype. And all of us, including you as my people, we've trained each other to be that stereotype. But none of us subscribes to that. You know, we had a webinar a while ago and I mentioned I was watching LA Law, some were watching Ally McBeal, some of us are now watching Suits, and you've got a lawyer stereotype. But none of the professionals in South Africa really are that stereotype. We're all different and we're all just humans. It doesn't take away from the fact that you're a very competent advocate. But we just have to move away from that picture we've all got in our head of what a lawyer should be: constant availability, perfectly groomed, the whole package. And I think the moment we stop perpetuating that through generations of training, it will just stop. It will just be acceptable that an advocate is also a mother.
So, yeah, but Sonia's mentioning is very important because I think it's more conditioning than it is a true reality. Being conditioned generation to generation to fit into that model and to move towards a point where you own it, and no longer care, what people would think and what they would say, and owning that space. But before I want to actually talk about, what happened, because you said, it intrigued me. You said something happened, in court yesterday. And I'm assuming it's got to do, with your role as being a mother. And that is the reason why you're very passionate, specifically to get this message out there.
Yes, maybe I gave it such a big introduction. Nothing dramatic happened. I think it was just the perfect storm. Like I said, I was busy with an urgent application over the weekend, settling papers. We were in court yesterday in Polokwane. It just so happened that my husband, who's also an advocate, had a trial or an opposed motion in the magistrate's court also yesterday. So I had to get up an hour and a half earlier because I had to pack the kids' lunches. Not that he wouldn't be able to do that, but we try and split the roles as much as possible, and to help him, because he also had to leave the house earlier than usual. My attorney and senior counsel picked me up at about 5:30. So I've been up since 3-ish, packing everything that I need for court, getting the kids' school bags ready, packing their lunches, making sure everything there is fine to help him as much as possible. Obviously, okay, went to court. It was a difficult day. We had a difficult judge, high tension, a lot at stake. So we had to spend a lot of the time during the day, sort of crisis managing. So I only got home yesterday afternoon just after 5. My husband said that he also finished about 4:30, went to pick up the kids. I got home. Now I've been up since 3. It was a highly stressful day. I don't have time to actually gather my thoughts of what happened, what is still left for us to do. I literally went into my study. I put my bags down, went into the kitchen, put the oven on, got something in the oven for dinner, because the kids are small and their routine is as much for my own sanity as it is for theirs. They have to eat at 6. So now I'm scrambling. And because nobody was there during the day, there's no milk, there's no bread. So thank goodness for Checkers 6060. I get on the phone, place an order. The kids got home with my husband at about 5:30. They need the attention that they need. They've had a long day. They didn't see me the morning before they went to school, which is, it is disruptive for them. So they want all of my attention, all 3 of them. Meanwhile, I still want to hear about how my husband's day went in court. He was arguing also a highly contentious matter. He wants to find out from me how it went. In between all of this, we had the school's AGM last night, which we had to log in so we could vote on the school fees, which is a reality. I mean, it's stuff that needs to be done. So in the background, we have the school board meeting. I have the kids. This one wants juice. That one has gone to the bathroom. I'm trying in the kitchen not to burn the dinner. The kids were not pleased with what I made for dinner, which is also it happened. So I think we settled on I just want them to eat. So the girls had cereal for dinner. Peter, I think, had maybe a piece of bread. By the time the meeting ended, we were already past bath time. Everybody is now, you can imagine, highly overstimulated. I'm absolutely exhausted. My husband is exhausted, but we need to get the kids into the bath. It's a fight to get them in the bath. It's a fight to get them out of the bath. By the time we get to bed, the girls are difficult. And now I need to not lose my temper. I'm tired. I also just want to get to bed. Eventually, when everybody's asleep, I mean, I'm beyond exhausted, but I can't shut my mind down because I still have in the back of my mind exactly what happened at court. Like I said, it was a difficult situation. We still need to sort of think of a plan to fix it. And all I need to do is just go to bed, but I can't. So I actually sent Sonia a message late last night saying, I know it's late, but this is the stuff that we need to talk about while I'm in the moment, because that's the reality. So I went to bed too late last night. Woke up this morning, it feels like I've been hit by a train and everything just starts again. So getting the kids ready for school, thinking about everything that needs to happen at the office today. And then while I'm also dealing with the situation where my little boy is at the stage where he refuses to get into his car seat, that it's absolute tantrums. So it's a complete tantrum to school. Again, now I need to be a 100% mother in that moment. I can't be advocate. I can't be anything else because if I'm going to try and be something else, I'm going to lose my temper and I'm just going to escalate the situation. Everybody's going to be upset. So I need to be calm. I need to be mother, not think about, okay, this is actually making me like so late. I need to get to the office. So shutting that down. Then my one little girl, I mean, it's also been a long year for them, so she's tired, and she needs her routine. So the fact that we were out of the house early and bed late, so she didn't want to go to school. Now I'm sitting with a child who doesn't want to get out of the car. She refuses to go to school. She's crying. I need to get to the office because I have stuff that needs to get out today. And that's what I spoke to Sonia this morning and said, well, this is actually the perfect time to have this conversation because I'm in the moment. Next week it doesn't seem as bad as it seems now. And to constantly then just to remind myself, I can't think about what I need to do now. I need to just calm this child down and reassure her and just get her into school, just get her to school. So she's crying. I'm upset. Eventually get to the office. And it takes me more than an hour to just gather my thoughts and where I can actually sit down and productively do what I need to do. So that shift between 100% mother, which I mean, I'm not saying that I was 100% mother this morning or yesterday because I wasn't, but you try to be as much as possible. And then to come back 100% advocate, I can't. As I'm sitting here, I am exhausted. I am so tired. And yeah, so nothing drastic, nothing like, worthy of LA law or anything yesterday, but that's the reality. It's just from the one thing to the other. And yeah, so it was just, like I said, the perfect storm.
No, and it is, it feels to you that it's not a big deal, but it is. In that moment, it's really tough, and I think that Sonia and I are a bit grateful that our kids are slightly older. I still remember those tantrum days and struggling and so on. Sonia, did you want to quickly jump in here
All
before
I wanted to add is, and a lot of that is now against the backdrop that when you go to chambers, you're not in a place, and I don't want to say you hide that you're a mother, but you're now not in a place where you can now openly discuss this, because you are now the advocate. You should now be completely focused on your tasks, on the level of work you're doing that is expected of you. So all of this that's happening in the background, and it's not like a once-off. This is going to be happening day after day. But all of that is still happening. But once we move into the legal environment, you have to completely step away from that. Where I think there's few professions where that is so expected, like it is expected from us. But as Marika said, that might just be a perception that we've all created.
Yeah, the thing is, I think this is a great also example of, some of the things that Sonia and I, are teaching on a constant basis. It's actually, I'm happy that we're having this conversation, because it just goes to show that it's the reality, like you said. It's not going to change. The circumstances, life will always have stress and pressure and so forth. It is, how do we manage it? Because if you are going to have a day like yesterday, every single day, where's that going to leave you? Burned out, then you can't be the best that you can be in your career, as a mother, etc. So first and foremost, self-care is very important. And yes, it's easier said than done, probably, because there's a big shift that needs to happen. And I think, firstly, the thing that we usually teach is, to switch off mentally. We talk about this quite often. And it's not easy, but it will get better with practice. That's what I've noticed. I used to be very also, like, in my career, overthinking everything, taking it home, because your mind is constantly busy with that. So I had to kind of create my own type of practices to just stay present. And it seems simple, yet it helps me to this day. Because often, you will think of the things that I need to still do, the stuff I didn't get to, etc. And then you're at home, then you're already tired, you're maybe irritated, and so on. So what I then will do is to just remind myself to be present in that moment. And as you do that moment by moment, it gets easier with time. I use my 5 senses, for example. If you get home from work, for example, just to see, okay, what's around me, what am I smelling, tasting, feeling? Let me be in the moment now. I don't then, let your mind wander to work again. Being in that moment, being present, and then again, when you get to work, being present there again, not thinking about the kids, what just happened. It's a lot about self-management, managing our thoughts, where we allow our thoughts to go towards. And yes, it sounds so simple to say this now, it sounds like a simple thing to do, and yeah, because there's the reality. But there's a few things that we can do, because if you look back now on the day, before you went to the court, if you now look back on that day, what could you perhaps have done to have made things a bit easier in terms of, when you got home and so forth? What, if you now reflect back, what are you taking from that?
Yes, I mean, I completely agree with you. So I think the presence in the moment is like I say, it sounds simple, but it's so important, because if I don't allow my mind, let's say, for example, while I was making dinner and I'm thinking about the day, or I'm thinking about what happens tomorrow, I mean, to what end? It's not going to change anything at that moment. All I'm going to do is just draining myself more. So I understand, but it's such a natural thing for us to do. And I think that's where we say it's actually a skill that you have to learn, like anything else, like any other skill, is to, calm your mind down, being present in that moment. And the kids are little shits like that, because they realize very quickly when you're not in the moment. And that's when they will do, anything extra to get your attention, especially because they didn't see me the morning. So that's why it's a struggle to get into the bath, because if they act out a little bit more, then they sort of force my attention towards them. If you are there, from the outset, then and you can calm yourself down, which they feel, and then they are also like calmer. So yes, it is. I agree. It is a skill that I'm still trying to learn.
What?
Yeah, it's a work in progress, even for myself, and other small things that could help, that I remember when my kids were young and I knew that there's going to be some disruption. What I found that worked, even when they were very young, I would prep them for it. I would
Yes.
say to them, okay, so tomorrow, mommy's going to work late, so I'm going to come home later than usual. I'm going to be tired. We're just going to have something small to eat, and then they also kind of know what to expect.
Mm.
And I didn't always do that, but I must say the times that I did prepare them to say, this is it's going to be like this. I need you to help mommy that night, to, quickly bath, quickly get into bed, that type of thing. I found that kind of worked as well a bit. And if that might, I don't know, Sonia, if you've got any strategies, you also went through that with a lot of kids to manage.
Yes, I did. The prep is a very good idea. One of my only boy was also, it's the boys are always the most difficult when they're young. And then teenage years, they swap over, then the girls are more difficult. But you had to prepare him, and I didn't initially realize that he didn't cope well with any disruption. And then even the smallest thing, just quickly stopping at the shops on the way home, it threw him off. And the moment I learned to preempt that and to tell him, this will happen this afternoon, we are going to stop, we're going to, even if it's more than what will already happen in reality, I elaborated that
Yes.
it might take a bit longer before we get home. And that settled his mind. But on the whole conversation of being present, Marika actually taught me something which is so easy to do, but for us, we find it very difficult to do. And it all actually just comes back to a level of self-discipline. And we are very self-disciplined people. I mean, for you now to be doing your doctorate at this stage with 3 very young children and your full practice, you are a disciplined person. But because, again, I think because of the profession, we are so used to just letting our mind stay on work.
Mm.
It's exactly as you say. You'd be cooking dinner and you're actually arguing the matter. You are, wherever you are, your work is in your mind. And Marika said to me, she takes small little breaks during the day. So we'd work for a certain amount of time together. We'd be preparing on a matter or writing a matter. And then she wants to take a break. And firstly, I'm not used to that because we would just continue working. But you actually start suffering and your concentration starts declining and you're actually making yourself more and more tired. And there's lots of research we did on cognitive overload and what it actually does to your mind. But then she takes a break, a 5-minute break, a very small break. And then she'd tell me she would think about something else. And I would be very confused about how would she do it, because even if we're in the 5-minute break, I'm still busy in my mind with whatever we are doing, but she doesn't do that. And then she said to me, well, she just actively taught herself in that 5-minute break, she's not allowed to think about work. And it sounds so easy, and it is actually so much easier to implement the moment you're aware of it. So I started doing that, and I started thinking exactly as you said, while I'm preparing dinner, while I'm in the car with my children. The moment I realize I'm thinking about work, I just say, Sonia, stop, don't. And the more you do it, eventually, Marika, you can do it. You can switch over like that now because you know how to quickly settle your mind. But it's a decision you take. And because you're so self-disciplined, you can do it in everything else. You just have to train your mind. I don't know, Marika, I just gave your advice away. I don't know if you can elaborate on that.
No, it's great because sometimes I forget the advice I actually do because it's habit for me. But it comes down to just, self-awareness, because sometimes we feel like we are a victim of our thoughts because they run on their own. And oftentimes I need to catch myself still to say, but why am I allowing, to constantly rethink the same thing that is obviously maybe stressing me out, or that's not serving me? let me choose to think something else, because that's another thing, you know, that's a bit tricky with our mind. It's difficult to say to yourself to stop thinking about something because the mind thinks in pictures. It needs very clear instructions. So instead of saying, oh, stop saying you're tired, you know, replace it with something else. So I would even catch myself thinking, oh, I'm tired, you know, and whatever you repeat in your mind, your body listens to that. So the more I say I'm tired, the more tired I feel. So then often, you know, I will test it and then I will start replacing it with, I'm fully energized and focused. I will repeat that like, you know, a record that is broken. I will constantly say to myself, I'm energized, I'm focused, I'm energized, I'm focused. Then I'll go outside, take just 2 minutes in the sun. You know, literally that helps a lot. That's one of the other problems, you know, that we get depressed because we have a lack of vitamin D. I'll just go outside for literally 2 minutes, not half an hour, 2 minutes, just taking some of the sun, you know, drink some water and say, I'm energized, I'm focused, take a few deep breaths. And then immediately I start feeling more focused. So it's small things like that. If you can incorporate that in your day, it will help your energy resources to last you a bit longer because now you are currently running on reserves, which is a bit dangerous. Luckily, it's end of the year almost, you know, but imagine it was now the beginning of the year and you felt like this. Yeah, it's yeah, but anyways, that we can talk a lot about this topic actually. But it's important because just owning being a mother, because you're not the only, you know, mother. Every, you know, most female lawyers are also a mother and a wife, a partner. Um, yeah, and we just have to own that. So we've
Yes,
spoken a
Danielle.
lot, Danielle. Your
Sorry,
turn.
Danielle. I want to ask you now with the younger mothers, specifically in your experience at the bar at the moment, is there a support system between the younger advocates?
I would say maybe not as formal as I would have liked. I was lucky enough that when I moved to Circle Chambers, I just so happened that we are, say, a group of 5 or 6 similar age and kids similar age, and I mean that has helped so much because um, you know, the other thing is like Peter with his tantrums and getting in the car seat. I mean, it's draining. I mean, you can't struggle every morning. Like, baby, you know we're going to get in the car seat. You're going to have to go to school. It's, you know, I can't have this fight with you every morning. And just that share and, you know, a shared experience just makes it feel or already feels like a support system because you're not alone. You're not the only one who's going to lose your temper when it comes to the fifth tantrum about, you know, putting on these shoes or wearing that dress or whatever the case may be. So I think I'm fortunate enough to have that support at Chambers, but I do, and when we've spoken about this so much in the bar, but then I think there needs to be a more, I would love to have seen a bit more of a formal support system. Because and I'll say, I mean, both my girls are going to an occupational therapist at the moment, and again, um, you know, that perception there's not anything wrong with them; it's to help them um, adjusting and getting ready for school, going to grade 1. But that's something that I would never have said because there's also that perception of there's something wrong with your child. And as soon as we started speaking about it amongst us, it was actually, yes, but my child's also going to an occupational therapist, or my child's going to a speech therapist, or so even that, because I mean, that also is a constant worry. Being a mother is my child going to be okay? You want your child to be okay. So that's another thing. And I think that's part of the support that we need to give one another. And I think because there's been such a shift in maybe parenting styles, that the focus is a lot now more on gentle parenting, which is a difficult thing, I want to say, for my generation to do, because we have to unlearn first and then learn, because I wasn't, with all due respect to my parents, but they did not gentle parent me. So it's that in itself has been a difficult thing, and I experienced that amongst mothers my age, it's been a very difficult thing for us to do, and we see the value in it, but it's not always, it hasn't been easy because that's not the parenting style that we were exposed to. So we had to unlearn and relearn, which in itself is very um, emotionally perhaps draining, because your first instinct would maybe have been to do it in one way, and now you're realizing, oh, that's actually not the way you should be doing it because you're causing more harm than good. So, I mean, that just adds to, or I feel maybe that mothers my age has been, it's that's added to the pressures of motherhood, because all of a sudden we're in this realm of gentle parenting, which is completely foreign to us, and we're trying our best, but it hasn't been easy. So also reading a lot of books and getting the help that you perhaps need, and unlearning from what your parents did. Again, with all due respect, I don't think they knew any better at that time. There has been a shift. So that's just another added pressure, I feel, although it's a good pressure, but yes.
So if you say formal support, I'm just thinking now, I mean, would that maybe be something like having a workshop on gentle parenting for the ladies of the bar? Or how would you see a more formalized support? Because it's one of those things that we've been talking about. I mean, my kids are now teenagers and we've been talking about it for years, but we haven't really moved to it. So I would like to hear what would you see as formal support within the bar or within the bigger legal community?
I think the starting point is that we need to get all the mothers in one room, and so that we know who's who. Because, like you say, you get to chambers and you don't necessarily speak about your personal life. So I might be sitting next to somebody who's actually sharing exactly the same or experiencing the same with their children, but we don't know it. So I think that's maybe the first point, is we need to get to know one another. And as soon as we start talking about our experiences, then you'll find your little groups and your little cells. So, if I've had a rough day with the girls, or I know who I can go to at chambers and just say, it's been a morning. So I think that's maybe the first. So it doesn't, when I say formal, it doesn't really mean, I don't mean formal per se, but I think if we just know who we are, because we tend to not, and that brings us back to what we said initially, it's that vulnerability. You don't want to seem vulnerable at chambers. You don't want to seem like the weak one, the one who may be sitting with a difficult child, a child who's got difficulty adapting in social situations. You don't want to say that at all. So I think maybe as a starting point, like I said, if we just know, get us all in a room, and I promise you, once we start talking, we are going to realize that we're actually all in the same boat.
Yes, I agree. I think that's actually a very good idea. And yes, just to humanize, Marika often says that, but just to humanize the people in the legal fraternity, because that's exactly what you said, is we don't want to show any vulnerability. So you don't talk about things, and actually you're dealing with a problem that is someone else has probably already dealt with, and it feels so much bigger to you than it really is. So thank you for that. That was actually a very valuable contribution. I think Marika and I will have a discussion. Maybe we can try and assist.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Danielle. I think this conversation is very important and much needed. And just by you speaking up today, probably, whoever's watching this or listening to this and going through the same will now feel that they're not alone. And it's okay. It's okay to not always be the best lawyer, not be the best mother. And, we're all struggling. We're all trying to figure it out. There's no one textbook, on how to be a mom. Every child is so different and so unique. Just as soon as you think you got it, then your next child is completely the opposite and it feels like you don't know anything and you're back to square one. And we all just try to figure it out, together. So thank you so much. It was really amazing to talk to you. And I think, out of this conversation, it could actually follow so many other type of conversations, from being a mother and balancing everything. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Did you want to have a final thought before we end the session, Danielle?
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for the work that you're doing. It's so important in I think a variety of professions, but especially in ours. So yes, thank you for the work that you and Sonia have put into this initiative, and I think you're doing great work.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And I think you gave us a few ideas to brainstorm after this. Okay, great. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening and watching. And then we hope to see you in the